We hope you enjoyed the videos by Chefs Tara Burkhead and Seth Day from Tri-County Tech about making comfort food. If you haven't seen it, you can watch it at your convenience on the library's Facebook page. We are now going to discuss what you need to know when moving into your own place, so you can prepare now. We are going to hear from 3 professionals who will explain what a landlord will expect when you rent a place to live. Our 3 guest speakers today are Brenda Koons, Jodi Faulkner, and Miranda Reeder. Brenda Koons has been managing property for over 30 years. She enjoys working with people who behave like adults. She enjoys people who keep their word and behave with integrity. She enjoys working with people who are clean and quiet. She is an educator and looks forward to teaching people how to be successful renters. Jodi Faulkner and her husband Steve have owned and managed rental properties for almost 30 years. They have had houses, apartments, and a mobile home park. They have also heard every possible reason for not paying the rent, up to and including, I got into a car accident while trying to avoid an armadillo in the road, so I can't pay the rent. Jodi likes to remind tenants that school will start every August, and Christmas will for sure happen in December. Therefore, rent will be due in September and January. Miranda Reeder has been working for Gorman Management for 4 years as a leasing agent. That means that she processes any application that lands on her desk to see if they qualify for their property. In 2018, she received her Housing Credit Certified Professional designation, and in 2019, she received her Certified Occupancy Specialist certification. So currently, she works at the Willows Apartments in Bartlesville. They are a layered property managing both income-based and market-rate apartments. She has been at this property for almost a year. Before she made her way back to Bartlesville, she worked at Oklahoma Christian Apartments in Edmond, Oklahoma. She says she has been lucky to get on with a company like Gorman and that she loves what she does. Please welcome our guest speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. I will start asking some questions about becoming a renter. So if you would like to be a renter, there's some things you have to do. So you need to come to a facility or a person or a home or a mobile home park and present yourself. And I'd like Jodi to talk about when someone presents themselves to you as a possible renter, how their appearance may affect your decision.
Thanks, Brenda. I just would encourage you, if you're going to show up to rent a property, that you think about how you're presenting yourself to your potential landlord, or in Miranda's case, as a leasing agent. That you be wearing clothes that you might wear for a job interview, not something that you slept in the night before, which has happened to me a whole lot of times. That doesn't make the saying goes that you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and that's true when you're wanting to rent a house or an apartment. So think about that. I've even had people show up, and I think my friends here have too, not wearing shoes. And so think about the impression that you're making on people, and that you're wanting to rent this home or this apartment from them, and that they're going to expect you to keep this place clean and to pay rent on time, and that your impression matters for that. So,
absolutely. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, and I think as the private side of this, that we might be the ones cleaning up after you when you leave. So it does make us think when we see things falling out of your car when you get out,
yes,
that it may not be our best choice, and we have choices, other people, other applicants. So we want to make the best choice for us as well. Okay, so you come to a place and you want to rent, and you will need to fill out an application. I want Miranda to tell us what we will find on the application.
So for the Willows properties, like I said, we are layered, and we have what's called a tax credit or a market unit, which is a totally separate application. Got this right here. It's probably pretty standard to what you guys have for applications. You need references, current landlord information, income information. For our tax, that's just for the tax credit. For our regular Section 8, again, it's probably pretty similar. It asks about eviction history, criminal history, who referred you. I mean, our applications are pretty standard. It's not until we get further into the moving in process that things really differ from us specifically. But with ours, though, we do require social security cards, birth certificates, and driver's license or IDs from everybody on the application with it so that we can get them on the wait list.
Okay.
And that is something that people struggle with. Not everybody has their birth certificates handy, or their social security cards. They don't know where they're at. So unfortunately for us, that's not something that we can get around. We have to have them because there are higher up people approving these people to move in.
So 3 forms of ID.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep, all 3.
So it's a waste of time to walk in without having what you need.
Yeah.
Do you communicate that to them on the phone or?
It states it on the applications actually, and if they do physically hand us the application, I do let them know right then we do have to have those 3 forms of ID. Typically, as long as they have their social security number verification or card, I can verify that and get them on our wait list at least. But I do have to have those other 2 forms once it gets to the move-in process. Because like I said, we outsource our approval. But yes, and if they turn it in, we have a drop box at our property. So if they turn it in after hours and it doesn't come with any of those documents, I send them a rejection letter and they have 14 days to reply.
Okay.
That's pretty cut and dry for that side.
Very cut and dry. Jodi, what do people need to bring to you if they would like to rent from you?
We've also provided. I can't speak. They need to have someone to speak for me. We asked for social security card and driver's license. I haven't done birth certificate, but I may add that in now. And proof of income or credit report. I can run the credit report, which is going to cost them a little bit more. They can bring me a copy of their credit report. And I don't need people to have perfect credit, but if there is issues on there, then I need them to be able to explain it to me what happened. Sometimes people have had medical expenses that have just set them way back, and so we just need to know what's going on. And I would say this preemptively as we get to the lease process. Always let your landlord or your leasing agent or whoever it is know what's going on. So I can't help you if you won't speak to me. And a lot of times when people are having problems or not able to pay all of the rent, they hide from the landlord or the apartment managers or whatever it is, and then we can't help you in any way. So always over communicate with us.
Absolutely. That actually brings up a good point for me too. On the applications, when it asks about evictions or criminal history, it does you no favors to lie about it.
Yes.
We do criminal background checks, we do credit reports,
Yes.
We do federal criminal background checks. So even if you think that it's not going to come up on a public search engine, we will find out. And it doesn't look good if you're hiding it. So
What about you, Brenda?
It's a really good one. Yes. Really exactly what you said, Jodi. Yeah, we need to know exactly who you are and what you've done, and full disclosure. Yeah. Especially in an apartment setting, you want everyone. You're responsible to make sure that everyone is safe, and you need to know who you have coming into the family.
Right.
So it's very important, the honesty aspect.
absolutely.
Okay. Now rent. When you rent privately, you're going to pay more rent than when you rent through a government agency who will help you with a sliding scale. So would you speak to that, Miranda?
So on our Section 8 side, it's the sliding scale income-based property. So if you come to me and you have 0 income, you're not working, you don't receive any sort of Social Security amount, there's not anybody that's helping you on a regular basis, your rent is going to be 0. And you're going to have a $25 deposit. Now that doesn't mean quit your job and come apply for our apartments, because we do verify everything. We also run, it's called an EIB, to verify that people are not working. It's a database that we have access to. So even if you don't tell us that you're working, we can find out. But for the Section 8 side, it's based on 30% of your income. So if you're making $1,000 a month, your rent's going to be roughly $300. There are certain things that we account for. So if there are children or dependents in the household, HUD has allowed for deduction. So if you've got $1,000 income or monthly income and you've got 2 or 1 kid living in the household, HUD takes, I think it's $480 out of that. And we use that adjusted income to base the rent off of. So if you have 2 kids, it doubles. And there's other like medical issues like that as well that we kind of base our income off of. So that's why when somebody asks, I have to give them a rough estimate, because I can't give a specific number until I have all of the information. really good.
Okay, Jodi, people like to rent houses, and often people who are in apartments want to have a house. What is the difference between renting an apartment and a house?
Privacy. So I've owned and managed in apartments and houses, and I can see why you would want to do both. For example, in an apartment, if it snows, you don't have to worry about what happens to the driveway.
Right.
Your car, somebody will come along and plow that for you. And likewise in the summer, if the grass is growing, you go, oh, the grass is growing. I don't have to do anything about that. If you're in a house, you're going to have to do something about both of those things. So you need to think about that. Do you have time to mow a yard, weed eat a yard, keep up with what needs to happen there? Do you have the equipment for that? Can you afford the equipment for that? Can you shovel snow? Also, there's a bit more, I feel like, maintenance that comes to you in a house than there is in an apartment. I don't expect my renters to handle big things, but if your toilet is clogged, buy a plunger and try that, and then call me. If a light bulb is burned out, replace it. And so in a house, in an apartment, you have a little bit more leeway with those things, and a little bit more help with that. I was more likely with my houses and my apartments with houses to let tenants have pets. And we've kind of discussed that just a little bit, but if you've got, and we always said that the dog had to be outside, and the dogs were firmly, mostly not ever, always outside. And I do require a pet deposit, because I've always had pets, because I've had kids for a lot of years, and pets just make messes. And so, but families want to have pets, and I get that. So we've allowed them, but in our apartments we did not allow them, because it's just too small of a space, and dogs, like my daughter currently lives in a 12th floor apartment in Washington, D.C., and has to get her dog outside, and the dog doesn't always make it. So, shh, don't tell. And so I did not want that in my apartments. So that's kind of some of the things about houses and apartments that I see are different. What about you all?
Utilities also.
Yes, good. Mm-hmm.
With houses, you've got more utilities. At
Absolutely.
our apartment, you're responsible for the electric. We do have houses also out in Oak Park, but they pay gas, electric,
Right.
and city water.
Right.
Also, like you said, any lawn care, expenses like that. So,
And the utilities make a huge difference, and even just getting the utilities turned on.
absolutely.
It can be, if you haven't had utilities in your name,
Those
or if you,
deposits are rough.
the deposits are high. And I recently moved, and I've had service with Oklahoma, with AEP, PSO, whatever, for 20 years. And they were going to charge me a deposit. And I've had a lot of houses and a lot of properties. They were going to charge me $150 to move. And I said, no. And, but the deposits can be really rough.
Yeah.
And so that's just another huge expense with a house
Absolutely.
that you may not have in an apartment. What about yours, Brenda? Do your apartments, what utilities?
Right, exactly. I was going to say the utilities are a big thing, and exactly what you said. You really said it, but yes, basic maintenance. And in apartments, sometimes people come in and they've never rented before. So people have asked me, do towels come with it? And no, towels do not come with it. So if you don't know what to expect, you just don't know what to expect.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't know what to ask either.
Right. So
Good.
that's why we're here.
Yeah.
So once you're in an apartment, once you've been approved, you have the money, there's always a deposit. Often, is yours the same as a month's rent, Jodi?
Usually, yeah. Unless on higher end properties that I've had, I've charged a little bit less, because that's just such a huge ding but typically, yeah, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about equal to a first month's rent.
Right.
So.
Okay.
And let me say on that, as a private landlord, and Brenda can speak to this too, when you come to that first meeting and the first question out of your mouth is, will you work with me on the deposit? That doesn't set up well for me wanting to rent to you, because if you can't pay the first month's rent and the deposit, what makes me think that you're going to be able to pay the second month's rent? And so don't lead with that question for a landlord. You might, as you get down the process and your application has been approved, you might say, could I pay that in a couple of installments? But still, be prepared that you're going to have to pay basically 2 months rent when you move into some place. So, and you're probably going to have to turn on some utility. In some of the apartments, you may not, but you need to be prepared with a small stash of cash before renting.
Right.
So
that is such great advice. Yes.
That's even at our apartments. You should expect to pay at least 2 months rent. I think so. I have my model lease one here, and this is the income base. So the rent was only $14, but I think the deposit ended up being like almost $30. So it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but that's 2 months.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I think that kind of just goes all around.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, and along those lines, I just had someone ask me, I signed up for rent that is due on the 1st, but I don't get paid until the 15th, so can you adjust that? Now, how would you answer that, Jodi?
I have let people prorate rent. So if you cannot pay, I mean, if your rent is due on the 1st, by the 5th it is late. Right. And I will serve you an eviction notice if it hasn't been paid, because it's hard to get a court date. And so if I serve you that eviction notice on the 6th, it could be 2 months before I can get into court. And you can live in my house without paying, which probably we shouldn't tell you. But it's just the truth. And so it may seem harsh, but that's the only way that I have to make payments and insurance and taxes on these properties.
Yeah.
And so the only way I can get money is to get you out and to get someone in who will pay. So if you need to move in and not pay until the 15th, then maybe don't move in until the 15th, or offer to pay me a half a month's rent. Talk to me about the possibilities, what you can do, not what you can't do. And so I don't always necessarily have them all due on the same day. Do you do that, Brenda, for ease of?
Most generally.
Yeah. So what would you do if they said that?
I would want them to pay ahead. I would want them to pay on the 15th the money that is due on the 1st, that will be due on the 1st. So
okay. If
you pay December 15th for the money that is, for the rent that is due January 1st.
Okay, good.
And they can just wait, as you said, they can wait to move in on the 15th, because I will prorate. So if they move in on the 15th, then we'll just pay half a month's rent, and then
the rent will be due on the 1st then?
The rent will be, so the whole month's rent, yeah. So anyway, we will work it out, but they need to think ahead instead of behind.
Right.
So people will say, I want to do this trip, so can I get behind on my rent and then make it up later? Now, our side of that is, how about if you get ahead on your rent, and either way, it's going to be hard on you. You can pay extra before, or you can pay extra after. So, as Jodi pointed out, we have big bills to pay, and especially this time, we have great stress making those because of the situation of renters and landlords right now. So be considerate about what you're asking, because it's a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For the Willows, we charge a late fee after the 5th. So if they haven't paid their rent, whether it's $14 or $200, if you haven't paid your rent by the 5th, that 6th, or whatever following work day, you get charged $30.
And that's a big hit if your rent is $14.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more than your rent, so
mine
definitely pays. So. See.
Yeah, I encourage on-time payment.
Absolutely.
So,
Or 10% of the rent.
Yeah, at the very least, staying in contact.
That is so huge.
It is so huge.
Please, can we all look at the camera?
Yes.
Please stay in touch with us.
Communicate.
It is so irritating when somebody just
disappears.
Right? I call. Nobody's there.
Right.
We don't know. Have you moved? Are you
right?
Are you gone? Are you coming back? Are you?
Yeah.
What are you doing? And
because we do have people who leave in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And they always leave the house trashed.
Absolutely.
And owe money. And we don't want you to do that.
So, yeah, we can do what we can do if you don't irritate us to the point that we don't want to do what we can do.
I mean, we want, like I said, I think earlier, it's in the best interest of all of us if you stay in the house or the apartment. And so we want that for you. We want that success for all of us.
Especially as the leasing agent, it's way less work for me if people are not constantly moving in and out.
And the work that's required. Brenda and I will have to come in and clean it. There's a question from the audience.
So I was wondering, what happens if a renter does move out in the middle of the night?
Ooh.
What happens to their deposit and all that?
Well, the deposit's gone because they're gone, and they're never going to show their faces to us again, most likely. So anybody that I've had move out in the middle of the night, the only time I've ever seen them again is in Walmart. So, so I had one family move out, and it was a house with a bunch of built-ins, like built-in drawers. They took all the drawers to move their stuff. And so those are not things that you can go buy at Lowe's. And so we had to completely rework this house. That's just an example. But yes, they're going to lose their deposits. And Brenda and I are going to have to go in and clean up all the stuff because they never take all their stuff. And so, yeah, it's a huge problem. Just if you would just communicate with us, we would help you if we could. I mean, right.
And we can take you to court for that. And we can. I've had that happen, and they took a refrigerator, and so we had to go through the whole court. You know, left, and then in addition to the rent you owe, this is what you've taken,
and the damages.
And now these are the damages. This is a mess now.
And it can eventually even go on your credit and show as an eviction. I mean, depending on how the court rules, it's just not a good idea. So don't do that.
So it's a little exciting on our side. When somebody abandons a unit, I believe we have to hold their possessions for 30 days. And we post a notice on the door stating that we're aware that it's been abandoned. They've got this time frame to get in contact with us to get their stuff. If they owe a balance, they do have to pay that balance before we will let them into the apartment to get their things.
So you change the locks immediately?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we change the locks. That way they have to be in contact with us.
Right.
After that 30 days, we go in and trash the apartment. Everything that's in there, unless it's like obviously important documents, if there's social security cards, birth certificates, things like that, we'll hold on to those and try, hopefully they get in contact with us at some point. But as far as the security deposit, typically they don't get it back just because it is then applied to cleaning fees. Sometimes we do use subcontractors to trash out an apartment. We're lucky we have really good maintenance guys that will do that for us.
And by trash out, you just mean everything goes in the dumpster?
Yeah, dumpster, everything. So if they're coming to us hoping that we held on to that one piece of furniture, it's probably gone. But security deposit, if they've fulfilled their lease, then it is applied to any cleaning fees or any balance that they owed. If they have not fulfilled their lease, it just gets eaten. We don't apply it to anything, they just lose it completely. And then at that point, if there's a balance, which after cleaning there always is, if it's over $100, we send to collections. And we send them our final account statement to the last known address, which would be that apartment, and see where it goes from there. We did our due diligence.
Does a person become blacklisted in any way for renting an apartment? Like if they just leave an apartment in the middle of the night, are they blacklisted for renting an apartment anywhere in town?
If they do a landlord verification with us, then we would let them know this is the status, like they owed this balance, this is how they left. Well, actually, it would depend on what verification this new landlord sent to us, but they would be blacklisted from our properties. And since Gorman has multiple kind of throughout town, actually throughout Oklahoma, really, that would be something that we verify.
And not necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily know if someone moved out of Brenda's apartment. Right. We don't have a code, unfortunately. But we do know a lot of landlords in town. Yeah. But yeah.
That would also kind of depend on if they put the previous landlord on the application.
Good question.
Very good.
Right. And along those lines, what could cause someone to be evicted? And I want to speak, we were talking about pets.
having someone living there who's not on the lease.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
Anybody that's living in the home needs to be on the lease. So you cannot move someone in and sublet one of your rooms without letting me know that you're doing this. If they're not, the lease is a legal contract that you have signed with my company, and on that legal contract are the names of the people who live there, all of them. No surprises. Don't like surprises.
Yes.
So that would be one, including pets, which we also list on the lease.
Would you explain what subletting is?
Subletting. So if you've rented a house from me that's a 3-bedroom house, and you've decided that your family can all cram into 2 bedrooms, and then you move your cousin George into the 3rd bedroom, and he pays $300 a month rent, which goes to you, not me, then that would be subletting. So you would be renting out a room of my house that I have not approved for you to rent out, which is uncool and violates your lease.
It is uncool. But also, we're speaking about people who just come in for free too. So
Yeah. George can't live there for free either.
Yeah. His kids, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
People we have not approved are
Right.
not okay. Because once again, especially in apartment situations, we have to keep it safe for everyone.
Yes.
We need to know who's here.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not to be harsh. It's for the safety of everybody that we know who's on the lease.
Oh yeah, and with the Section 8, I think that constitutes as fraud. I mean, you're defrauding the government at that point, and they're not fans of that.
It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, a little bit.
So pets too. When I drive by one of my houses and see that there are 2 German Shepherds in the yard, which I did not know lived there, that's happened, and is not okay. So what else on breaking a lease?
We have to be very by the book. We have to issue violations within certain time frames. So if there is a lease violation for an unauthorized tenant, we send a violation to that tenant. Usually they have 10 days to remedy that. They have to report to us, this person doesn't actually live here. Here's a copy of their actual lease and their current utility bill.
Wow.
To prove that they're not living there. Because anybody can say, no, I don't live here. I'm just staying for a couple days or whatever the case may be. So we do have to, we verify that. And if they don't provide that document for us, we send them another violation. And I think after 3, then we go through the court. I mean, or we might send them like a non-renewal of lease if they fulfilled that year lease. So at that point, they have 30 days to leave. We're not renewing the lease anymore, and they have to get out. If they choose not to get out, though, we do go to court, file for eviction.
Which we sound like we're court happy, but it's the only remedy that we have.
Right.
We have to get the unit back, the house back, the apartment back. And so if you won't leave, then we have to get a judge to say that you have to leave.
Yeah.
So it's not that we're just hateful people. So we're really good.
Another reason would be that you are being difficult to live near.
Loud noise.
Oh, yeah. Complaints from neighbors is a good one.
Obnoxious friends coming and going.
Drug use, criminal activity.
Right.
Oh, even housekeeping in our apartments.
I was going to ask, do you do inspections?
We do annual inspections.
Okay.
With the recertification, our maintenance does go in. I think actually our new manager goes in and she'll do maintenance and housekeeping inspections. And as long as everything is in running order, there's not any major fire hazards, trip hazards, things like that, we're fine. We expect people to live in these apartments. Your housekeeping is probably different from my housekeeping. My housekeeping may not pass the inspection, but we let them know. We'll send them a letter, say, hey, this is what you need to clean up.
Well, so
we'll be back.
The importance of that is that I had an apartment building burned down one time because I had a tenant who was super, super messy, and she had clothes over a bunch of wires in her bedroom, and the alarm clock had some sort of faulty wiring and the clothes were across it. And anyway, so I lost 3 apartments, and the tenants called me before calling the fire department. So can we just say here at this point, if you have a situation such as a fire in your home, do not call us. Call 911 first, and then let us know, please, which my tenants did not do. So anyway, the housekeeping does really matter. and for bugs for your neighbors, if you're living in an apartment and you've got a lot of trash or something, it can really lead to problems for everybody who's living around you.
And it really does.
It does.
It does.
It does.
You can think that it doesn't, but it does.
It does.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big one. So cleanliness is very important. Okay, I have a question about, I'm a tenant and I want to redecorate my apartment. I want to paint and put up big glass mirrors that weigh 50 pounds. Is that okay?
So, sure, Brenda. I had a tenant one time who did not ask me that question. He just chose to do that and painted his one whole room of his apartment pitch black. And it took us many coats of primer to cover that black. This was the same apartment building that burned down. It should have been a sign for me here. So what are your rules at the Willows? Because I'm sure they're probably more uniform.
Yeah. We actually underwent a tax credit remodel a few years back, and so everything is relatively new as far as paint, flooring. We do not allow anybody to paint the apartment. They can try, but no. We will actually provide them with the proper colors if they ask for it.
You will paint it for them?
No. If
Okay.
if they've done something, the kids have drawn on the walls
Gotcha.
with Sharpies. We'll provide them the right colors if they just want to paint the apartment. But they're not allowed to just pick whatever color they want. As far as hanging things on the wall, as long as it's not doing anything destructive to the actual walls or the sheetrock, we don't mind it. We can patch holes. We don't prefer anything that's 50 pounds. That would cause significant damage to the wall.
Yes.
But as far as hanging regular pictures or, pinning a poster on the wall, that's fine.
Not Scotch tape, please.
No, not Scotch tape. Or even those command
Oh,
strips.
those
command
command
strips.
strips are terrible.
The command strips are terrible.
Wow. They peel.
They rip it. Yes, they peel
They
the
do.
paint right off.
Don't do that.
People act like they're better, but they're not. You just go straight through the drywall.
Well, and so that being said, as far as a lease violation, that's not something that we would issue anything for, because we do want these apartments and the houses to feel like they're home. But come time to move out, you're gonna get fees for cleaning and damages, so it all comes back.
Okay, that's a good point because it does come out in the end.
Yeah.
We don't ever like things coming out in the end. Okay, I want to talk about renter's insurance. What do you know about renter's insurance, Jodi?
You need to get it.
Absolutely.
So who would you call for renter's insurance? I haven't had renter's insurance in a long time. Is it just a regular insurance agent that you go through to get that? Okay, it's in our leases and that we insure the property. So my home is insured, but your contents that you have in there, your couch and your PS, whatever it is, number now. There, I just showed my age. And those things are not insured by my homeowner's insurance. So you need to find renter's insurance for your contents. For sure. And it's probably in your lease encouraging you or strongly encouraging you to do so.
I wish that I could say I knew. If it specifically states you should probably get renter's insurance in our leases, but I don't know that it does. Tom, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, we know it's a good thing.
It's a good idea.
Do it. And it's not expensive. I mean,
It's not expensive.
Yeah, so it's definitely worth the cost. But it is, as we're talking about costs, something that you need to factor in. You've got money for deposits and money for rent, and you need to have money for renter's insurance. You wouldn't drive your car around with no insurance. For one thing, it's not legal, but you need to insure your belongings in case of that your upstairs neighbor has clothes laying across her alarm clock wire. So,
Or somebody leaves the water running and it floods your apartment.
yep.
I used my renter's insurance because the place I was living in was burglarized. And so then I had to submit a claim regarding the contents of my items that had been stolen.
Wow.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, so items, in case they couldn't hear you, items that she used her renter's insurance in case items have been stolen. So, great point.
I have a question on here. Someone wants to know good tips about finding a good roommate. Now, I would say that frightens me because I have lived through 30 years of roommates, and
Yes.
you can learn to hate people by living with them. And the complaint can be, she ate all of my Fruit Loops as fast as I could buy them. She ate them, and It can be food issues. It is hard. I would not help somebody find a roommate.
No.
If you don't know them well, it's probably going to be not a happy thing.
When I was young, I had somebody, I rented with 2 other girls because I was young and poor, and that's what we could do. And one of the girls moved out in the middle of the night and stole a bunch of our stuff, including my grandmother's engagement ring that I never got back. So, and that's a real horror story, but it's a real story, and you all need to think very carefully about rooming with someone. And that's a terrible bad story, but the Fruit Loop thing is really valid too.
Valid, yeah. And then also, I expected him to pay half of the rent, and he doesn't have. He decided to go see his girlfriend in Toledo, and he doesn't have any money.
Yeah. Yep. And depending on how the lease is written, you can be responsible for it. I mean, you just need to be very careful about it. Roommates can be a good thing, and it does help with the cost, but it's also treacherous sometimes. So
at our apartments, if you have a roommate, they have to, I mean, we've already talked about everybody has to be on the lease, but if they're approved and if you want them to move out and you're head of household, you have to get their permission. I mean, they have to agree to move out. We can't just evict this one person because you no longer want a roommate.
Because they signed the lease too.
They're on the lease too. They have every right to be in that apartment. So I think you just need to know if you want a roommate, if you really want a roommate, what kind of roommate you want. Do you want somebody that's going to be around all the time, occupying the same living room as you every time you're in there? Or do you hate the fact that you live with somebody who hides in the room all day?
Introvert, extrovert.
Yes.
Yeah.
Roommates are tough.
What they're watching on TV, what they're doing on the computer. Yeah.
Who's sleeping in their room with them? I mean, it's messy.
I think so.
Do they do the dishes?
Yeah.
That is a big one. Yeah.
They never do.
I do all the dishes.
They never do.
Okay. Those are
the
my
check-in and check-out inspection forms. That's one of the questions that was asked, and so I'm sure Miranda, you've got that. Do you use a check-in and check-out inspection form for move in and move out?
Oh yes, we do. We actually go into the apartment with the tenant, walk around. They get to look at everything. If they see something that needs fixed, I mark it on the list. It might be something that we can fix that day. It might be something that we have to order apart. Typically, I like for our maintenance guys to have it done. That's not always possible, especially when somebody's trying to get in as fast as possible as well. There's a little bit of wiggle room. But we do move-in inspections, and they sign it.
Right.
That
is huge.
Yeah, I give them a little grace period too after the fact. So if they move in over the weekend and they're like, "Hey, I just realized this light switch doesn't work," or this plug, I don't know what it goes to, they can call and say whatever, and I'll either mark it on there or make a work order, so that way they're not
locked in.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't negatively affect them when they move out.
Oh, good.
Okay, I have a question about criminal activity. I have criminal activity. I have just gotten out of jail. I'm applying for an apartment. How does that affect my application?
So do you want to go first, or do you want me to
go ahead?
So with us, if it's pending, let's say there's a felony charge and it's pending, you've not been actually found guilty or anything, they're investigating. We will process your application. If you have done any jail time for it already, we can reject you. If you have a felony charge that is drug related or violent within the last 10 years, we reject immediately. If you have a felony charge that happened 20 years ago, but you're still paying it, we reject you. We go off the most current activity. So if you are still having court dates, whether it's just probationary, whatever, or you're still paying fines for a felony charge, we reject you.
Mine's probably not as much of a science. I mean, mine's more of a wiggle room because I am a private landlord. So, but a violent crime, and also I'm going to check the database for if you've committed crimes against children. I'm going to check that, and you're not going to live in my house.
Yeah.
So, because that is a danger.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's a good one too. Any sexual crimes, if you are a registered sex offender in any state, that's an immediate eviction or immediate rejection forever. I mean, that there's not even a time frame on that one. Okay. We have to look out for the rest of our tenants.
You do. It is so important.
Yeah, and I mean, it sucks for a lot of people. There's a lot of extenuating circumstances.
Yes.
I feel like, and especially when, this is just my opinion, not the opinion of Corbin management, I think, but especially marijuana-related charges, because it wasn't legal and now it is, and it still shows up as a drug charge. That's really upsetting for a lot of people because they're not understanding like why they're being rejected.
Okay, there's a question on here about where do you go to set up utilities? So how do you set up utilities?
For us, you would just call PSO, tell them, give them the address and the day that you want it turned on. They'll either tell you if there's a deposit, what it is, when you have to pay it. It's pretty easy for us.
I try to, because I've had properties not here, so I try to know what utility company they need to call, and I provide that to the tenants. Here are your utility. I mean, because you're going to have to call for gas, electric, water. It used to be cable, and depending on what you do on all phone and all that, but I try to provide the utility information. Usually it is PSO and ONG and Bartlesville City Water, but just depending. So we used to have, where we had a mobile home park was out in a rural area, and so rural water is, I can't say the words, it is completely different than trying to get City of Bartlesville water. So all of those things. I usually try to help people. I mean, they have to have those to live in a place. So that's true.
Okay. So I'm surprised nobody mentioned getting water. It's not making a phone call. And saying
it is not. Yeah, because your tenants don't have to get water, right? I mean,
our houses.
Yeah,
they do
you have to go to the City of Bartlesville office,
and you have to have a lease in your hands that is signed.
Yes, and
it doesn't really matter if you work during the hours that they're open. You must go.
No flexibility in getting that done. So, yeah,
very true.
Yeah. So yeah, just be aware that that needs to happen. And the others are very easy.
You can do it phone or on
water.
water. Yeah, but not water.
But a lot of it's not immediate. I mean, there's going to be some lag of time between.
You definitely have to call in advance.
Right.
Because you get the utilities all set up, otherwise you could be moving in and there's no electricity, no water.
This is true.
Well, I'm not sure about you guys, but so at the apartments anyways, and I think even at our houses, just because our maintenance guys have to do maintenance while they're empty, we keep the electric on. And if you move in, you think it's on, so you forget to call, they still send us a bill. And if you've been moved in for a month, we're gonna bill you for it.
Yeah, I used to have with all of my properties that the power reverted back to my name, so that I don't have, if they move out in the middle of the night and cut off the power and the gas, then I don't have frozen water pipes. And so yeah, it's the same thing. The power might be on when you show up, but I'm also going to cut it off after a day or two or whatever, So so you do need to make sure that you.
And that would actually, that would actually be a lease violation for us, because it does state in the lease that they do have to have utilities on in their name at all times. So even,
versus.
Which, even
the lease.
Yes, absolutely. That, I mean, since it does bounce back to our name too, though, if your utilities get cut off at any time during your lease while you're living there, that's a violation.
And we're going to know.
Yeah, and they bill us, and we're going to bill you.
Okay, and Jodi just spoke about frozen pipes. What can people do to help with that?
They can leave a faucet dripping. It doesn't need to be full-on water, just some water coming through the pipe. If it's an interior bathroom, probably you don't need to do that. Typically kitchens are on the outside wall, the north wall frequently. I don't know why that is. And with a window above them. And so those pipes are going to freeze. Open the cabinet doors so that heat from the home or apartment can get to the pipes. I would say, if it were your own home, perhaps run a space heater near that, but never run a space heater in your rental unit, because they're dangerous. But leave the water dripping just a little bit. And what do you all do with the apartments? Do you suggest anything on that, or?
I don't know that
Haven't
I've
dealt
ever
with
had
that.
an issue with freezing pipes.
I think it's at apartments, especially because there's so many people around. I think
Exactly. We don't typically have
Yeah.
water just sitting.
What about yours, Brenda? Have you had an issue with that, or?
Over the years, we've had a few. It stays pretty warm in Oklahoma, so
That's true.
we don't have to worry about that until the temp is below freezing, and sometimes not even then. But a small drip in a faucet, and it's just a drip,
Right. Just a drip.
not a stream, because that can get very expensive.
It
over there.
does. Yes.
Yeah, you don't want that.
And again, if it's just an outside pipe, I mean, the inner bathroom is going to be fine. So.
And that was, just opening your cabinet is very helpful. It's very cold, and if it's on exposed wall.
Yeah.
Here's a question about, are the appliances included? And sometimes they are, and sometimes they aren't. I'm sure that they are in your case.
Yes, so we have refrigerators, dishwashers in the units, and garbage disposals. That counts as an appliance. We keep kicking this. I'm so sorry. We do not have laundry units in the apartment, but we do have laundry facilities on site that we rent the machines from another company. But they are, they're technically included. Out at our houses, we do provide the laundry, the washer and dryer. So those are all included. The only thing I think at that point you would need is microwave.
I provide no appliances. Appliances break and are expensive. And I used to provide appliances years ago, and it just gets so costly. And so now in apartments I do, but and in mobile homes we did and didn't. But in houses I almost never provided an appliance. So again, when we went back to the question of what's different in a house and an apartment, in a house you're going to have to probably have appliances. And I never, if a washer and dryer is there that someone has left because they've left stuff, because they always do, I will say there is a washer and dryer there, you are free to use it. I provide no guarantee of how it will work. But I don't provide refrigerators. Dishwashers are usually built in. And stoves, you have to have a stove here. So.
Oh, yeah.
What about you, Brenda? Are they in your apartments?
We do provide those.
Yes, but it's expensive.
It is expensive.
And people need to make sure that they take care of those appliances. You have to clean off the backs and the bottoms of refrigerators, or the coils get really dirty and they quit working.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. And also, taking the lint out of the dryer is something people seem to not be familiar with, and that's very important.
Yeah, so you can just
Dangerous.
use your vacuum cleaner and clean off, like if you can pull the refrigerator out, just clean that off. Or down, usually on the front, there's a place that you can clean off, and it works so much more efficiently if you'll just take those few steps. And you get better use out of it, and it's going to last longer.
Yeah.
So, and the stove, keep your stove clean. Just
Your
works
oven.
better. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's all I'm asking.
But usually in apartments, those things are provided.
Right. Okay. Question: what if I lose my job? How about you, Miranda?
So for me, that's a fun one, because if you lose your job, you would just call us. We would verify the last day that you worked, and your rent would go from whatever it was with your income to zero.
Well, that's sweet. I wish it happened that way.
I know. Like, calling the mortgage company, hey.
But the bottom line of that is that they need to communicate with you.
Absolutely. Well, it does you no service if you lost your job and you're in an income-based apartment. You're gonna want to call me,
Right.
versus go from not working to working, you're not going to want to call me, but you need to, because that's fraud.
And just communicate with us about what's going on, and let us know. Brenda and I will try to help you, but we do still have things that we have to pay. If you're not going to be able to pay and you continue to stay there without communicating with us, it's just worse for you and it's worse for us. So that's the bottom line. Just talk. We're not the enemy, and this is not a love-hate relationship. We want to be on your team too, but you have to talk to us.
Absolutely. That is right too. Okay, we've gone through the questions that we have been given. Do you have some things that you'd like to add, either one of you? Anybody in the audience have a question? All right. Well,
Thanks, everybody.
yeah.
I hope it's been helpful.
I hope so.
Hello again. Thank you, Brenda, Jodi, and Miranda, and thank you all for tuning in. Our next Lifehacks class will be Thursday, January 28th. We will learn more about what you need to know to succeed as an adult. See you there.